What's going on YouTube? Cloverbells here, back with another Scarlet Violet video, and today we're going to be talking about Gyarados. And it was only a matter of time, right, before Gyarados made its way back into the meta. Its good buddy Arcanine all of a sudden, made a resurgence in Series 2 with no surprise, right? Because the Intimidate support is just super valuable anytime in competitive Pokemon, regardless whether there's Defiant stuff or, clear Amulet items running around. But now that Arcanine has returned, Gyarados all of a sudden is making a comeback as well. And what I wanted to do was wait for some tournament results to back up our claim, right? Because we on this channel we always want to have a claim but then back it up with results, right? Because other than that, if we don't have the results, then our claims are kind of empty, right? But we have the results, so now we can actually talk about Gyarados. Okay, so what does Gyarados do? So if you look at its stats, it's a pretty good physical attacker, base 125 attack. The bulk on the HP is really good. 95 is nice. Special defense also, in triple digits, very nice. The defense a little bit lackluster, but it's still like kind of average. And if you can compensate that with the fact that you have Intimidate, then this defense bulk is actually okay. So on all things considered, Gyarados is actually a relatively bulky water type, right? And with some of its movesets and terrestrialization, you're actually going to do quite a lot into the meta, right? So what you can do here is, of course, with Waterfall, and then something like a Dragon Dance set, and then Protect. Okay, and then over here, you can just have Tera Blast with Tera Flying. That's one option. Or the other option that I like is Tera Ground. Okay, and now you might say, well, why would you want Tera Ground? Well, think about what's running around here and what's at 40% usage in the meta right now in terms of Paradox Pokemon. It's the Iron Hands. So with the Iron Hands, you're just able to do like super effective electric damage into Gyarados, which was originally 4 times weak. But now with Tera Ground, you're able to kind of neutralize that and maybe even pick up the KO on the Iron Hands. And with the Intimidate support against a physical attacker like Iron Hands, Gyarados can actually match up relatively well. The other thing you have to watch out for is the Iron Bundle, right? Because the Iron Bundle, with Freeze Dry is just absolutely going to rip through Gyarados. So you do have to be aware of these two Pokemon, right? But and despite the fact that whether you go for ground or flying, the bundle is going to be doing super effective damage with Freeze Dry. But that's not going to be able to KO Gyarados, with all this bulk and this special defense, right? So with all things considered, as long as you're able to outspeed the bundle, you're in a pretty good spot because you're able to, deal some good physical damage, not only against these two, but some other meta threats as well. All right. So what we're going to do now is take a look at some potential tournament teams that have been able to make use of Gyarados. And then we'll maybe, develop a potential moveset here, in addition to this, and then see some, teams in terms of team building that we could do with Gyarados. All right, so let's take a look. Okay, so the first tournament that I want to look at is the Rose Tower that opened up again recently. So shout outs to Slim and the boys for putting that back up together again. I think this tournament had like over 300 plus participants. Check me if I'm wrong. But either way, if you look at number 11 over here from Daniel, an Italian VGC player, this is pretty much what I'm talking about here with Gyarados. You're just able to put it on a pretty standard team, and even though there's no Arcanine, that's okay because they've opted to play, their fire type a different way and then have Gyarados still provide the Intimidate support on what is otherwise a pretty standard team. So, you've got Flutter Mane, you've got Amoonguss, Garganacl, Iron Hand stuff. This is pretty, these 4 are a pretty standard core. And then all of a sudden Torkoal is on here. So you're able to provide the drop for photosynthesis, so a little bit more damage on the Flutter Mane, maybe even speed. Just to try and maybe outspeed other Flutter Manes. But then if you look at Gyarados over here, with Tera Flying, of course, this is again flying damage. So Waterfall, Dragon Dance, Protect. Again, we talked about that set earlier. But the idea here is, after a Dragon Dance, you can pretty much outspeed a lot of the meta, right? Especially the bundle. And we'll talk about that EV spread towards the later part of the video. But just having Intimidate support for Flutter Mane is actually important because Flutter Mane doesn't have great physical bulk to begin with. So if you can support this, like for example with the Arcanine or even with the Gyarados in this example, then the Flutter Mane is able to stay on the field for a little bit longer and deal more damage, right? And even though Garganacl and Iron Hands, they have pretty good physical bulk as it is, just additional bulk allows you to maybe take off some of those EVs and just put more in special defense and a little bit more in HP or attack in this case, and then just afford that luxury, just having that support on the team. Okay, but either way, you can always do like Amoonguss Gyarados here. Click Rage Powder and set up your Dragon Dance. and just go from there, right? So I really like this core. It's pretty standard, it's pretty consistent, it's pretty easy. All right, and you can just do so much here with Gyarados, and the results show, right? 9-2 is very, very good in a big tournament like this. So shout out to Daniel over here. Let's look at another tournament here. Okay, the Oceania Prep Tour. So something like this again, from SM Frost, I think that's how you say it. So 6-2 again within the top cut. A little bit more of a smaller tour, just about 30 people. It's just for OCIC prep. But if you look at this team again, it looks relatively standard. With Flutter Mane, and you have Brute Bonnet, Iron Hands rather than the Amoonguss, but still Gyarados is over here. And the fire type of choice is the Armarouge, right, rather than the Torkoal. But still you have Trick Room support on this team, and then you have a Steel type here with Scizor as opposed to like the Garganacl. But either way, similar core, but you have your two fillers being Armarouge and Scizor. But here this is a Perish type of Flutter Mane, so that's always an interesting set. And then over here with Gyarados, Lumberry once again, Tera type flying once again, Dragon Dance, Waterfall, Tera Blast, Protect. Same set as Danielle, so it's a very common set, makes a lot of sense. But the idea here is, again, you can set up your Dragon Dance with Rage Power from the Brute Bonnet. You can set up Trick Room with Brute Bonnet Armarouge, right? And then just have Gyarados come in and support things, with the Intimidate support. And even the Iron Hands over here, if things want to click a ground type attack into the Iron Hands, for example, Great Tusk, you can swap out the Iron Hands, swap into Gyarados. 1, the ground type attack doesn't do any damage, and 2, you intimidate the the Great Tusk, and now they're not going to do much damage from the rest of the game, right? So that's the idea there. Anytime you can provide flying type pivot for something that's weak, to flying type attacks, like even the Armarouge is also weak to ground type attacks, then you're in a good spot. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense here, and I like this kind of core as well. But again, like I said with the Danielle's team, it's a very similar core with the Flutter Mane plus a Redirector plus a Fire type, and then you slap on Gyarados, and then you have two fillers, right? Well, also the Iron Hands. That being said, all right. So let's look at another tour here. Let's see. This is the Battle Fortress, the very first Battle Fortress, and there's actually two types of Gyaradoses on two top cut teams, and these are like a little bit more out there sets. But let's take a look at the first one here from Cali. All right, this Gyarados set here with the Iron Valiant. Okay, there's Armarouge, Tinkaton, Meowscarada, and Baxcalibur. Oh my goodness. So the only Paradox Pokemon was the Iron Valiant. This is actually a pretty cool Iron Valiant set with Close Combat, Moonblast, Icy Wind. So a little bit of speed control there. Armarouge, of course, has Trick Room, Baxcalibur, Dragon Dance, Meowscarada. Okay, pretty standard band set. Fake Out Pressure from the Tinkaton, and then the Gyarados here. Look at this Gyarados set. So you can play Gyarados with either like a support set or an offensive set. So we saw two teams make use of Dragon Dance offensive set, but now this Gyarados is the Citrus Berry support set with Thunder Wave and Helping Hand. Okay, and that's a cool way to try and utilize Gyarados. You kind of saw that a little bit in Series 1, but now if you want your water type to be supportive, then this is the way to do it. And I think Gyarados also gets like Icy Wind. All right, don't check me on that. But let me check. I think it does. If I go back here, let me just see. I think it does, right? So if I do Icy Wind, yeah, it actually also gets Icy Wind. So think about, the bundle with Icy Wind support. Gyarados also technically gets that as well. So you can also consider Icy Wind on Gyarados too. But again, the whole point of showing you this is that they were able to do very well with and top cut with, which is otherwise it looks like a non-meta team, but then also a non-meta Gyarados set. So that's pretty cool. So shout outs to them. Okay. What else do we have here? This is a Sand team. Oh yeah, this was the Sand team with Slitherwing and a Gyarados on it. So this is actually crazy. But we know what Slitherwing can do with the boost energy. First Impression, Close Combat, Protect, Flare Blitz. That's a pretty standard set with Terra Fire, and you can't really burn this thing, so it's gonna do a lot of damage. But then you have the Sand Core with Houndstone and Tyranitar. This is actually very interesting. With Shadow Sneak, Last Respect, Will-O-Wisp, okay, pretty standard. And then it's the AVT Tar with God to Tell. We've seen this before. And then this Gyarados is again back to being offensive with the Waterfall, Terra Blast, Dragon Dance set with the Lumberry. But this time it's Terra Electric, which is actually interesting in that, in terms of what it's supposed to do. Now, Terra Electric, this is also good against the bundle, right? So if you have to beat that mirror, against like the Iron Bundle, the Terra Electric makes a lot of sense. And it also, makes electric attacks into your own Gyarados not very effective. So you're able to resist it that way. So that's pretty cool. And you still have the Amoonguss here, of course. It just makes a lot of sense to try and set up that Dragon Dance. Okay, so this is actually another cool way to try and use Gyarados. And again, it just really depends on the team. But right now, we've seen a couple of standard cores that can use Gyarados, and then some other off-meta teams like this that can also utilize Gyarados to its fullest potential. All right. Okay, now this is something that I saw this morning. This is a Ecuadorian league, all right, and Juan Farias is actually in first place here with a Gyarados team. So it makes a lot of sense here with this kind of core. It's actually pretty cool to use Garchomp. I think Garchomp still has some use in Series 2. We'll do a video on Garchomp, because it was also in Orlando. Didn't really top cut, but it still had like good results in terms of like earning CP. So we'll reevaluate Garchomp in a bit. But Gyarados again is on a pretty standard core with like Dragon Fairy Steel, with the Dragon Fairy Steel coming from Garchomp, Scizor, and Sylveon. And then the Iron Moth with Gyarados, you get a Fire Water core. And then the Annihilate is also potentially like Tera Fire, just so that it doesn't get burned. But something over here could be like Tera Grass, just so that you get that last VGC core going in here. But other than that, you can see like Gyarados kind of fits in here. You're able to, provide Intimidate support, maybe even provide, some Helping Hand, Thunder Wave coverage, if anything. I don't really know what the sets are. It could just also be like a standard Waterfall Dragon Dance set with like Tera Blast. But it's pretty cool to see Gyarados in first place in a potential league here, and we'll see what happens in their future weeks. But I'm just glad to see Gyarados do really well. All right, so now what we're gonna do is take a look at some Pokemon right now in the meta that Gyarados can potentially do well, and then you'll see and understand why Gyarados is actually doing the job that it is doing. All right, so let's take a look. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is list some Pokemon that Gyarados could potentially do well with, especially with either like a Tera Flying or Tera Ground typing. So first off, I want to look at these three, right? Roaring Moon, Great Tusk, all right, and what's the other one? Iron Hands. Okay, now imagine that your Gyarados was, a ground type, right? Tera Ground. So first of all, the Intimidate actually reduces all three of these, right? In terms of physical damage. And there's no clear amulet. A lot of these guys are running either Assault Vests or they're running a Booster Energy. So you're able to successfully intimidate these guys and remove their attack damage boost if they are Adamant Natured, or even if they're not Adamant Natured, then they just get intimidated and they don't do as much damage. And then they're forced to switch out, and then when they come back in, they don't get their Booster Energy anymore. So that's the benefit of having Intimidate like Arcanine / Gyarados within this meta. Once you intimidate them and you force them to switch, they lose their Booster Boost. All right, so that's right away that you see the benefit here. And then Great Tusk is going to struggle a little bit because Great Tusk, first of all, you take super effective damage from a water type like a Gyarados, and with your ground coverage, you're not able to hit the Gyarados anyway because Gyarados is also a flying type, without, going for that Tera. And then with the Iron Hands, for example, if the Gyarados is Tera Ground, the Tera Blast is going to do a good amount of damage. And once you get intimidated, you're going to have troubles trying to beat it because, the only thing you can really click on it is your fighting move, right? Because your electric move is not so great either. All right. And then from here, the Roaring Moon, same idea. The Roaring Moon can just do like relatively neutral damage to it with a dark type move, a flying type move, or a dragon move. But if you get intimidated, then you're not getting much damage off. And then the Gyarados, being a physical attacker, is going to, take advantage of your lack of physical bulk over here, especially after a Dragon Dance. All right. So then Gyarados is actually just posing a threat to everything here. So, if you're good against all three of these Paradox Pokemon, especially with like a Tera Ground typing, you're in a good spot, I would say. You have a spot in the meta to me, okay? So then from here, what else can you do well with? So first of all, there's Arcanine. Okay, Arcanine, again, Fire type, you just rip through it with the Water type attack. And if something like an Amoonguss, if you are Tera Flying Gyarados, then you're just able to go for a super effective Flying type attack into the Amoonguss. Goldango. So Goldango, again, another steel type that kind of suffers. If you can just go for Tera Ground into the Goldango, and even the Arcanine, right? You can even like Tera Ground the Arcanine if you don't want to use your water move for whatever reason. If you had to Tera Ground, again, you can just rip through these. And again, these are all like within top 20s. Okay, so that's the benefit here of having Gyarados against a lot of these super meta Pokemon. And what we can do is let's look at Picolytics here, and let's see if there's any more that we can really do well. Now, Bundle, again, you have to watch out for these two, Iron Hands and Iron Bundle. You have to make sure your Tera option is good, and you want to make sure that you, at the very least, can outspeed the bundle after a Dragon Dance. All right. Goldenga, we talked about. Amoonguss Arcanine, again, we talked about. Dondozo Tatsugiri, if you can intimidate that Dondozo, that's pretty good as well. We talked about Roaring Moon. Armorers is another fire type that you can do well with, especially with your water/ground coverage. All right, King Gambit, be careful of Defiant, but again, with the ground coverage, you're able to also, deal super effective damage. All right, then you have Brute Bonnet, Flying. Tera Flying is really good here. We talked about Kratos. Torkoal and Garganical, yes, again, the water coverage is good. And even if Torkoal will bring out the sun and then reduce your water damage, if you have Tera Ground, you're able to deal super effective damage anyway. Garganical, especially if they go still Tera Poison, which less and less of them are going for it. They're going for more Tera Ghost. But if they don't Tera, you can just deal super effective damage again with your ground coverage. So Talonflame just gets smacked with the water move. Maushold, relatively neutral matchup, but again, you can put pressure on it because it doesn't have that much bulk. But that being said, it does have Friend Guard, so you do have to watch out for that. Volcarona, you just have to be careful of not getting burnt, but that's why the Gyaradoses are running Lumberry. So after like a Dragon Dance, because Volcarona doesn't have super great defense, you're just able to, smack it, okay? The Annihilate we talked about here. If they go Tera Fire, then the Gyarados is actually looking really good, but just, again, be careful of Defiant, right? Meowscarada, again, Tera Flying looks really good there. Grimmsnarl, Ironmoth here. Okay, Ironmoth, yes. Again, water coverage there. Not too much Garchomp. Sandy Shock's another one. Sandy Shock's, being the Tera Ground option. If you can, use your water type attacks on it, then it's going to do relatively well. Sylveon, okay, relatively neutral there. You have good special defense. Again, just like going through this list, and even against rain teams, right? Like the rain will boost Gyarados' damage, so you're able to do super effective damage there. Well, not really super effective, but like stat boosted damage. Tyranitar, okay, also doesn't want to take water or ground type attacks. And the list goes on. Like you can tell like Gyarados is actually looking really good against a lot of these meta Pokemon. So it's no surprise that it's starting to rise. And if you want to get on the Gyarados bandwagon before it becomes like super meta, I would start right about now. And don't be surprised if Gyarados makes an impact in the upcoming Knoxville regionals, right? I really think it could. But yeah, all things considered, I do like its playset right now. And what I'm going to show you next in this next part of this video is maybe a couple of other team building cores that you could use with Gyarados. Just things to think about if you want to try and utilize it. All right, so let's take a look at these. All right, so let's take a look at some soft team building. And again, what we can do is just focus on like some familiar cores. So we saw earlier from like Danielle's team and SM Frost's team, how they were able to just use like a Flutter Mane Pokemon with Amoonguss, all right, and then an Iron Hands core, right? So basically from here, this is almost like your bundle, but instead of a bundle, you have a Gyarados, which is like a completely different Pokemon. But then from here, in terms of what you could do, you could just go for like Roaring Moon here, and then your last slot could be a Garganical, if you like the Garganical stuff, right? So this is pretty standard in terms of what you want the team to do. But what you can do with the Gyarados, and let me just show you this EV spread at the very least, is try to outspeed the bundle. All right, so you're gonna go for a Jolly Natured Gyarados and aim for this 196 investment. All right, which gets you to 138. And 138 is an important number right now in VGC because it does two things. One, after a Dragon Dance, if you do the math, 138 times 1.5, that'll get you to 207, which outspeeds the Iron Bundle. Okay, so that's one thing. Let's put Dragon Dance here first. So Dragon Dance Protect, Waterfall, and Terra Blast. Okay, and two, the second thing is that this mark outspeeds Modest Goldengo. So one of the most important numbers in VGC right now. So if you learned nothing from this video, at least you learned this number. But this is what I would go for if I were to make a Gyarados set. And then from here, honestly, if you don't like Lumberry, if you want to just go for like Life Orb stuff and just deal like more damage, you can. But if you like the Lumberry, then you definitely can do it. But either way, what I would just do is just go for like this investment where you're at. This is like with Life Orb, but if you want to go a little bit more, just go for 191 just to optimize against Tyranitar Sandshit damage, and then just have a little bit of defense like this. All right, and then just all straight into attack, right? And this is pretty much a very standard set that's meant to either outspeed Goldengo or outspeed a bundle after +1. Just have optimized bulk against like weather damage, and then still have a decent amount of attack where you still hit pretty hard. All right, that's what I would do here. And then if you just wanted to round out this team, you could just do something like this, where you have like Dazzling Gleam, all right, Shadow Ball, all right, Trick Room, right, just to help set up the Amoonguss, Iron Hands, and Gargantuar, and then Protect. And then this would have a Focus Sash, right? And then I just wanted to make everything level 50, right? But anyway, I could do that at the end. The Amoonguss here, if you want to have like Brute Bonnet here, you can, but you know, I'd rather just have the Amoonguss support. But you can have the Brute Bonnet technically. But either way, you know, just have like a simple Rage Powder Spore set, you know, with Clear Smog, all right, and Pollen Puff, right? And then from here, Tera Dark is really nice against, you know, the ENDD Armor Rouge cores. And then you can just have like a Citrus Berry for recovery. You could have, you know, a Rocky Helmet just to deal extra damage against Mouse Hold. So you can also have that if you want. But either way, this is a pretty standard set. Iron Hands. So with Iron Hands, you have a couple options, but I think what's ideal is just to have an Assault Vest standard set with Tera Grass, okay? And then just go for, you know, Fake Out, Wild Charge, Drain Punch, all right? And then Volt Switch. A nice good pivot move, so this way you can get in your potential sweepers. If you want to go for like the Swords Dance Belly Drum sets, you can do that, but then you're a little bit more reliant on setup, right? But I rather just have like a pretty standard Assault Vest Iron Hands in this case. So with the Roaring Moon, you know, again, another standard set here with like Booster Energy. This is going to be your Tailwind setter. So more speed control here with the Acrobatics Throat Chop set. All right. And then just Protect in the last one, right? Can't type. And then just, you know, Terra Flying here. All right. And then your last one being the Gargantuar. Of course, if you want that potential end game, you could just do like, again, Leftovers. All right. And then just Salt Cure, Recover, Wide Guard, and then Protect, and then this will just give you Gyarados, okay? So if you want something like this is a pretty standard, you know, Gyarados kind of core, where, you know, I could do the EV spreads. You know, if you really want me to do EV spreads, again, you can just use some of my previous videos. You can get some of my spreads there. Or if you really want to build a team like this fully, then, you know, just do a tier 2 sub or do a tier 3 sub, and then message me, and then I'll build you the team, all right? But some other ideas that you can do with Gyarados, not only with this kind of core with like Flutter Mane stuff, but you can also do it with Great Tusk, believe it or not. And I'll explain what that looks like in a second right here. But this is my idea with that kind of core. All right, what you can do is have Talonflame, Great Tusk, okay? And then, oops, that's a great point. I'm typing in the item. Here's the Great Tusk, okay? Let's move Gyarados over here. And the idea with this is Great Tusk now has another target where you can Earthquake next to it, right? Because Gyarados is a flying type, which is really, really nice. And then what's also really convenient is because Gyarados is weak to electric type attacks, the Great Tusk, oh, this was supposed to be Terra Ground, by the way. In the other team, it's supposed to be Terra Ground, but in this one, I'll keep it as Terra Flying. But because Gyarados is weak against electric type attacks, now the Great Tusk becomes a really good pivot for it because, you know, you're a ground type. So switch out the Gyarados, and then bring in the Great Tusk, and the Iron Hands electric attack does nothing because you're a ground type. So I foresee this as a really nice combo or a really nice core. And then from here, you could just do like pretty standard stuff with Amoonguss, a nice steel type with something like King Gambit, and then have like Flutter Mane stuff once again, right? A different kind of Flutter Mane team. But yeah, either way, it's pretty much the same kind of idea, where like you're building a team around these three. And if you want to use like a different three in its place, you can do that. I'm just giving you an idea of a potential team that you could use Gyarados with, right? And I gave you 2 of them. But either way, this is pretty simple with just like Tailwind, you know, Brave Bird, or even Flare Blitz actually, and then Will-O-Wisp, and then Taunt. You could do that with like a Covert Cloak, right? A Terra Ghost option over here. And again, the whole idea with Terra Ghost is just so that you don't get smacked by Dragonite or Arcanine E-Speed, right? Despite having the Covert Cloak resisting against Fake Out. I've gotten that question a couple of times. That's the reason why you have Terra Ghost. This one, you know, Earthquake, that's an item. You can do Earthquake here, and then just like Headlong Rush, that's Headlong Rush, and then Close Combat, and then Protect. And then you have the option to, if you have the Lumber here, you can just go like Life Orb here and just deal like a bunch of damage. Or you can go Booster Energy here, and then this will have the Focus Sash here. Okay, so that's the idea. Or you could go Booster Energy here, all right, and then just have Life Orb over here on the Flutter Mane and just be a little bit more offensive with your special attacker. So something like that is an option, right, where you can have like Dazzling Gleam, Moonblast, and then Shadow Ball. right? And then just protecting this last slot, okay? And then, of course, the Amoonguss is relatively standard. The same kind of Amoonguss, right? With like, you know, Rocky Helmet or Citrus Berry or some kind of recovery. You know, Rage Powder, Spore, Bitter Smog, and then Pollen Puff, all right? And then what else? You can even like, if this is Life Orb, you can even put the Focus Sash here on the Great Tusk if you want, right? Multiple options. And then this would get the Assault Vest, right? And then this would get something like Kowtow Cleave, all right? Sucker Punch, Iron Head, and Tera Blast, right? And then this would be Tera Flying. And by having Tera Flying on this, now you have yet another target that Great Tusk can Earthquake next to. So you have 1, 2, 3 options, right? Assuming, I mean, this one you have to Tera, but like 3 options that you can Tera next to with Great Tusk. And I think this kind of team makes a lot of sense just on paper, especially if you have like a steel type like King Gambit. If you want Goldango, you can put Goldango on this team, but I like the King Gambit just because it has a little bit better matchup into the Indeedee Armorer's cores, right? So that's the reason why I have it here. And it also stops your Great Tusk and your Gyarados from being intimidated because then you can just get the Defiant boost, okay? So something like this is another, you know, relatively standard, you know, core. But, you know, again, the whole idea is just to utilize Gyarados' strength. You still get Intimidate here, right? You get Redirection support here, and you have Speed Control with Tailwind, okay? And you can even put Trick Room on this Flutter Mane if you really, really want it. It's very flexible with what you can do, all right? And then the other team, you know, where you just had with the, where is it? I'll just go back here and make it again real quick. This one right here. Oh, no, not this one. Where was it? I think I lost it. I lost it already. Oh, no, this one right here. No, wait. I lost it already. Oh, right here. Okay, yeah. Actually, this one's already EV'd, right? I actually EV'd this off screen. So here it is. If you've stuck long enough with the video, okay, here it is. Here's a free Gyarados team. All right. It's pretty standard, pretty solid and consistent. So yeah, here it is. Okay, so that's going to be it now. So hopefully you guys enjoyed our little coverage on Gyarados in Series 2. Let me know if you have some other ideas on how to utilize Gyarados and if you want to try and use it too. But I think something like this is pretty solid and consistent. If somebody wants to make this a rental, I'd very much appreciate it. All right, so that'll be it for now, guys. Peace out and have a good one. And don't forget to check coaching on the channel.